Mordecai, you're on the air.
Yes, hello, Alex.
Hey, buddy.
Hey. I would like to let you know that thanks to you, I watched Jesse Ventura's documentaries dealing with the September 11th attacks conspiracy theory, and I would like to call your attention to a detail that the research team may have overlooked. It's something that jumped out at me when I watched the documentary, namely that's the ownership of Hangar 17, where the only known evidence from 9/11 still in existence is locked away from public scrutiny.
Yes,
now,
and Giuliani signed a mayoral decree that no one can ever get it, and that he, after being out of office, controls it. How does a mayor give himself power and control and basic ownership over something after he leaves?
Very interesting. Well, the thing that jumped out at me was this. When Jesse's camera team viewed the building from a certain angle, Hangar 17 in JFK Airport has a prominent unfaded billboard that says Tower Air. Now, anyone can go and look in YouTube and they can see it there. Tower Airlines was an Israeli airline that went bankrupt in 2000. And it's none other than that building, Hangar 17, that housed Tower Air's then brand new corporate headquarters.
I did not know that. Somebody should write up an article about that, and we'd post it at Infowars.com.
This is my question is this: why does 9/11 evidentiary material that would provide clues, such as the absence or presence of superthermite or other explosive materials in the dust from the blast, sit there for safekeeping in the former executive headquarters of a 10-year defunct Israeli front organization that contracted heavily for the U.S. Defense Department, and it still has an unfaded sign hanging on the building?
Sir, write it up, and we'll post it. Get the video clip or links to it or screenshots, and we'll link to it. Or somebody, I don't have that many writers, but if somebody will put it together, send it to Show Tips or writers at Infowars.com, we'll get that up. Anything else, Mordecai?
Well, Alex,
answering that question, thousands of pieces of data, common sense, history come into play. The military and the police are starting to wake up. The governments of the world have done everything they can to brainwash them and turn them against the people, and the people against the police and military. The last thing we need is offensive attacks on the criminal government. They have to stage events against themselves as a pretext to build up a police state, knowing that people will be forced to resist them, so they can then call that terrorism. And it is really up to listeners to decide, are they going to let their kids be taken away to jail for no reason? If there's a mass plague released, a bioweapon released, Obama's saying, get the U.S. ready for bio attack. They could use that as a pretext to bring in control. Financial collapse, all of this. For me, it's defensive, because you're not going to take the government back when it's illegitimate, built into redoubts and underground bases and facilities, by going around and having war with a bunch of their minions. You need to reach out now and educate people in the system how they've been controlled and show them the bigger picture. And I don't just say that because I'm afraid of getting arrested, as you alluded to. If I got up on air and did call for violent confrontation, what are the targets? I mean, if the police started running around arresting citizens with no evidence, which they're starting to do slowly, but in mass, and taking them to a FEMA center, I'm already getting here to the point of saying I'm going to have to go into airports when they try to body scan me and say no. And Lord knows what they'll charge me with then. But it's getting to the point where you have to say no. And then what do you do? I genuinely know that we have to identify the criminal element first to slow them down so we can stop their agenda politically. And see, by them forcing much of their agenda, even when we politically beat it, or no matter who gets into political office, the system just goes forward, that's waking people up now. The globalists want insurrection. They don't care if your average police officer gets killed or somebody in the military. They want that. They want to get us fighting with each other. So I am not for a violent confrontation with the government. That said, I'm not going to be drug away to some FEMA center for my political speech, and nobody's putting their hands on my children. And the system has been running into people defensively defending themselves, and the system's starting to get the message and backing off on many fronts. And that's a sad thing that people in the system are, I mean, a lot of CPS workers are getting killed now. You notice they don't hype that up in the media. It's just a little blurb. But every few days I see where CPS get filled full of holes by people that don't want to give their children over to them. But that is making them, in many respects, start following the Constitution, Due Process, Bill of Rights. The system, though, then uses that to further militarize police. So it's a very heavy, heavy issue you raise. And I've thought about trying to do a several-hour special on it. And I've done the research, but to recompile the research, because I get a piece here, a piece there of my research, and to try to lay out, I guess you're saying, the rules of engagement. And the Pentagon itself says 90% of war is psychological. We have the truth, they have the lies. And so we better work for peace and work for waking the system up and work for getting our counties and states and cities back, as we're doing here in the United States, and exhaust all of those avenues. And then when they come to take your farm or ranch because you can't pay the giant taxes they've levied, that's up to you to make your personal decision. I'll tell you, and I'm sad for the police and military and bureaucrats, because most of them are just dumbed-down fools that think they have the authority of God. A lot of people have made the decision. Mainly it's a lot of old Korean War vets. Most of the World War II vets have died off, but I've seen this as a trend, as a profile of the police harass them. They stop them. They harass them. And a lot of this happened a few years ago in Austin. This old World War II vet told the state police guy that was involved harassing him and trying to take his property. It came out in the news. He told him, he said, "Listen, buddy, you pull me over for no reason one more time, and there's going to be trouble." And he killed him. And that's what the servants of the tyrants need to get their heads screwed on and really understand. They're pushing people that can't be pushed anymore. They're pushing people that have just made the decision, okay, I'm dead. I don't care. Next person in government treads on me, I'm going to get violent. That's what people are saying. And now conservatives and libertarians have seen the government documents that we were given, that we released, where they are listed as the real terrorist and the real enemy. Well, that lets you know this government is the real terrorist and is illegitimate. But whoever fires first loses. That's been said many times. And I'm old enough. That's why the military wants people 18 to 25. Because they're young, they think they're bulletproof. They think manliness is just going out and having a war and having a firefight. But even when I was younger, I had read enough history and studied it to know that, no, we don't fight on their terms. We don't go out and just get in a war with the establishment for no reason. Or do it in a way that will empower their police state and legitimize this control grid they've laboriously built. It's a very, very important question, and maybe we should do a whole show sometime, maybe this week, do a couple hours, just opening the phones up about what's your line in the sand. But the bureaucrats need to know that the system isn't building FEMA camps and setting up checkpoints and putting in tracking grids for no reason. They know that they were going to carry out a criminal banking heist. I told you this 10 years ago. And we're only entering this. That would be so big, people would start resisting. That's why they take select cops from all over the country and fly them to different G20 events and other globalist events and have them attack old ladies with police dogs and sound cannon populations, and they send sound cannons to menace tea parties in San Diego because they're gearing up and getting their people ready and trained to engage the population. I think if we have a real war, a real guerrilla war, and of 150 million gun owners, only 1% decide to go out and only engage people one time, that's 1,500,000 dead cops. That's half the cops in the country dead in one day. And we have a lot more than 1% that are ready to go. And the system knows that. But thank God people have shown great restraint, because the globalists in public documents, public statements, we had Colonel Roberts on a few weeks ago about this, are training to bring in I-4 and multinational troops, and they've trained for it under NLE-09 and other FEMA drills last year, that they want that to happen. I have said many times it's better that 100 guilty men go free than one innocent man be executed or imprisoned. And it turns out over a third of people on death row are innocent. The DNA proves it, or people later confess, and the DNA proves it as well. So I can't sit here and pass judgment on police and military, a lot of which are waking up and are good people, and just say, that's the enemy. Prepare for war with them.